Okay, so finally the next step in the van build is here. Since the transmission is back in the van and the van is running good, we are now on to the next step of the van build, which is gonna be making and replacing these panels that go along the walls of the van. As you can see, this is one of the old panels that used to go over there. And I'm replacing these because they're just old MDF plywood that I don't really like, and they don't look very good at all, and they're pretty beat up over the years. There's some broken parts, and I don't like the clip system that they use. So I'm gonna be making my own panels for the entire van out of this door skin wood material that you can buy at Home Depot. It is very, very cheap. This whole thing was about 20 bucks. And these panels are pretty simple. They're essentially, for almost all of them, just squares and rectangles with some holes and some curves, but it should be really easy. Oh yeah, another reason is because they have the old holes for the ashtrays and everything, and I'm not gonna be using ashtrays. So I do want the interior of this to be pretty much completely custom, and having custom door panels is just a big part of that. Not to mention, this is heavy. This whole sheet is significantly lighter than just that panel. And I'm trying to keep this build as light as possible, so removing weight wherever I can is gonna be awesome. Especially considering I think I can use these old panels as a template just to basically trace onto that new sheet right here. I think it should be pretty easy? Question mark? I don't know. We'll see. And then a real fun thing that I haven't really done before. I got riv nuts and a riv nut tool, and this is how I'm gonna be fastening the actual panels to the van. These old panels use these like kind of these plastic clips that break, and you can't really take it off and put it back on. And I don't like that, and I want this to be much, much better. So we're using these riv nuts, which is cool because you put them into the van, you squish them in there, and then you can take just a normal M5 nut and thread it on like that. And that will be the fastening system for the panels. And this is pretty cool. You see, you take this nut, you thread it on to the end of the tool, just like that. And then as you squeeze the tool, it'll actually collapse the nut, and that will secure the nut into the pre-existing mounting holes in the van, which is pretty sick. I'll show you guys me putting one in right now. So here's one of the old mounting holes for the old panel, and here is the riv nut on the riv gun. I'm just gonna put it in there, press down firmly and squeeze the handle. Just like that. And now I can unscrew the gun from the nut. We have a perfect place to mount a screw and the panel, which is pretty sweet. How cool is that? This is the first time I've ever used these before. And I think they will be perfect for mounting a lot of the things I'm gonna mount inside the van. So firstly, I'm gonna see if I can strip this old panel down to see if I can't just use the actual like old MDF cardboard under here as the template. But I think this should be pretty simple. I'm just gonna take the old panel how it is, put our new material down, and then lay this bad boy on top. And then of course this is just a perfect rectangle, which makes it super easy because I can just line two of the sides up, make sure they are completely square. And then I'm just gonna trace the outline onto the wood. Trying to be as precise as possible, but it's kind of cool because in this case, even if it's not exactly perfect, it'll probably still work. Especially because this panel is going to be behind the kitchen area, which is also why we're starting with this one, so I can get some practice in before we do the ones that you can't see. This is also very much an experiment. This is just a thought I had. Maybe this will work and be a super easy way to make my own custom door panels, because I do have all of the stock panels. So we'll see. I do have to cut this out, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that. But anyways, there's our outline. So let's see, I mean, I have my sawhorses here. This is just so flimsy, I'm not sure how well it's gonna be supported up here. I might be able to make it work though. So I kind of got it supported with the sawhorses as well as I can, and I'm gonna see how this goes. Again, this is kind of a test because this material is so cheap to work with, but if I do a good job, then we'll put it in the van. All right, that went much easier than I thought it would. Look, that's basically our panel. Using that jigsaw to cut out the floor was kind of hard to cut in perfectly straight lines, just because the wood on the floor is kind of thick and the jigsaw wanted to wander just a little bit. So while I was able to get relatively accurate on the floor, like it's not even noticeable really, this was super easy to cut through. I could barely even feel it whenever I hit the wood. This seems like a very easy material to work with. Now we just have to see how it fits in the van. Now, we don't have the actual mounting holes drilled yet, but I just kind of want to see how we're looking. I realized a mistake. I forgot the floor of the van is now about 1 inch higher than it used to be, so this door card is now about 1 inch too tall. How are we looking now? Aha! There we go. That is just about perfect. Look at that. We have the first handmade panel in the van. I shouldn't say in the van yet, I still have to mount it. But that looks good. And it is so, I mean, that is just featherweight light. I believe the easiest way to get these holes lined up in the most accurate way possible is to take our new sheet and lay our old sheet on top of it, line it up perfectly, and then mark the holes that are already on this panel onto the panel beneath it with my Sharpie. Let me take that off, and we have all of our holes perfectly marked out. Now we just gotta drill them out accurately. So let's give her a shot. So we got our holes drilled. I don't know how well this is gonna work, because if I get like this hole to this hole wrong, like that spacing not exactly perfect, it won't be that big of a deal. But getting each hole just a little bit wrong will add up somewhere, and it could make it so one of the holes doesn't fit. So we'll see. Trial and error, trial and error. So let's get this corner lined up. That doesn't seem to be too bad. Wow, that seems to be lining up really well actually. So I just gotta throw some rib nuts in the rest of these holes, and then we'll see if we can actually screw our first panel in. Up until this point, I was pretty confident it would be relatively easy. This is the part I was kind of worried about. I will take a screw and get this corner started. Got that corner in. Let's see how this corner is lining up. It lines up. That's promising. Wow, and the rest of these look almost perfect. Not quite perfect, but I think good enough. Wow, so I believe that is officially the first panel that I made. That is super cool. This wood has a natural curve to it, so I put that natural curve into the curve of the van, and that seems to be working very well. One thing you guys have probably been able to notice is the same reason this is super easy to work with is because it's super thin, which means that it is also relatively fragile. I mean, this would be very easy just to punch through right now, or if I accidentally hit it with something, very good chance it would break it. So for the panels, unlike this one where this one is going to be behind the rest of the kitchen, I'm going to be using a little bit thicker of a panel. Now for the harder ones, which is going to be this guy right here and on the other side as well. As you can see, this has way more curves and dimensions than just the standard rectangle. So we'll see if my skills run out here or if I'm actually able to pull it off. Luckily, there's no actual curves in this. Curves are the hardest thing to cut in wood, for me at least, as I'm not very experienced with woodworking, but it's just angles. It's not even curves really. So I think this should be doable. And then I'll just repeat the steps from the last one. Put it down, trace it out, cut it out, and see if we can't throw it in the van. The panel won't go on the van yet because I haven't cut a hole for this, and I'm not going to because this is the old mount for the old seat, which I do not need anymore. I'm not going to use anymore, so I'm going to cut this off. And that is right, I am cutting parts off of my very rare vintage van that is in incredible condition. I've been made very aware that some people are not fans of me doing anything to this van because it was in such good condition. For those of you who don't know, I got this van in incredible condition. Garage kept almost all of its life. It only had like 3 or 4 owners. I believe I'm the 4th owner. I got it under 100,000 miles. It had essentially no rust. And because of that, some people are very not happy with me because these things are so rare and they have such a strong cult following with me cutting it up and doing what I want with it. They especially weren't happy with the bed liner on the interior or whatnot. And to that I say, I don't care. All right. I have a feeling that is hardened steel because it is throwing sparks. Let's see if I can't kick it the rest of the way off. There we go. And that is what used to hold the seats into place. Whoop. Now let's see if the panel fits. Boom. Like a glove. Look at that. It's a little tight, but that's what we want. And you can see I almost cut out the little hole for that seatbelt thing. But I was like, what am I doing that for? I can just cut the seatbelt thing off. That is looking really good, actually. This one I can already tell is not just as exact as the other one, but the screws are still going in, so I think we're still in business. And look at that, another panel. Wow, that is really starting to look good. I'm cutting these out by hand, this is nuts. And here's the last panel on that side that we are cutting out. This one should be very, very easy. And you can see another great reason to making my own door cards is that I don't need any of these holes anymore. So instead of having all these weird holes that nothing goes to anymore, we'll just have one smooth panel that fits the van perfectly. So now we're screwing this last guy in here, at least for this wall. Each one of these panels is getting easier and easier, and I'm understanding more how your measurements kind of actually line up with the car. It is not always perfect, but we are getting through it. Would you look at that? And just like that, we got the first wall of custom cut panels done. I'm pretty proud of that. It looks really good actually. Yeah, got the easy side done, which is inherently hard to cut, but I think we should be good. Doing this side first has built up my confidence. Alrighty, day number 2. While I was at Home Depot, I kind of held everything and compared the weight, and the Baltic birch is so much lighter than the other plywoods, which is gonna be great for keeping this build very, very light. So we're about to cut the other panels out of this thicker Baltic birch. All right, let's see if we can't use physics to put this down gently. Now we're cutting to this panel being done just because I knew it was gonna take a long time, but it fits perfectly and it looks so much better than the factory setup. I did this one a little bit differently because this used to be 2 panels. It used to be one here, one there, just like that side. But since this is going to be visible in the van, I wanted it to be one smooth panel that looked really good. So I actually took both of the old panels, taped them together, put it down on some cardboard, traced the cardboard out, and then I put the cardboard in here and perfectly cut the cardboard out so it would fit this shape and line up the bolt holes and everything. And I wasn't sure if it was gonna work because of course cardboard's not the most accurate thing to do. You know, I use CAD, cardboard aided design, but it worked great. The holes are almost perfectly center on all of them. These two aren't exactly perfect, but I can just drill the hole a little bit bigger and these aren't gonna be visible whenever the van is done anyways. Honestly, I thought this panel would be a little bit out of my skill range, but I got it done and it looks fantastic. I'm very happy with this. And of course it is the little bit thicker of a wood, so this is much more durable and I'm not worried about this breaking, where if I push on this side, it's a little flimsy. So I'm glad I went with the thicker Baltic birch right here. I'm also gonna do this panel on the sliding door real quick. This will be kind of complicated because there's some cuts in there, but it should go pretty easy. And then we will finish it off with doing the door cards, which are gonna be the most complicated. But especially after doing this piece, my confidence is even higher than doing this wall. So I'm not too worried, and man, just putting these panels on is really already bringing the interior together. And it's giving me hope that I can finish this build sometime soon. I'm trying to finish it within the next month here, so we'll see. All right, I spent the rest of yesterday finishing up all the panels. There's a lot of those the same crap that you guys saw me do. And look at these, look how good those look. This is the driver side door panel, which is one of the 2 most complicated panels to do in the van because there's a bunch of curves and holes and everything, but I'd say that looks really, really good for what it is, especially if you compare it to the old panel, which is just like old and made of weird materials and gross old leather and this like ply stuff that just peels and is not great. Whereas this is just one sheet of plywood, super, super light. And a big advantage of what I'm doing with the rib nuts and everything is that this will be bolted to the actual door and will be able to come off and on and basically whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do, and I'm not having to worry about breaking clips. Like I took these off and I broke a bunch of clips and the plywood split and it just wasn't good. But this is a big step in the woodworking of the van, which is cool because hopefully it means that the rest of the build will be relatively easy because the rest of it's mainly just simple woodwork, cutting straight edges, and just a lot of measuring. So yeah, thanks for following along. Thanks for watching. And on to the next part of the build in the next video. Bye-bye.